On behalf of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I want to appreciate the CG, members of the management staff, members of the management and staff of Nigerian Customs Services for this impressive performance. I commend you all. Going forward in 2026, we believe that you can do a lot better. What you need to do is to identify your challenges, try to address them as much as possible, so that you can have a much more robust performance in 2026 and beyond. Where you require legislative backings, please do not hesitate to call on us.
Whether these concessions still serve the purposes for which they were created is a legislative question rather than a customs one, and we will welcome your attention devoted to this particular issue. And finally, keep coming, not only when there are figures to explain, but when there is nothing at all to answer for. We will always welcome you. Every modernization reduces somebody's discretion and check the result of the petitions as it goes here.
Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, DGC deserves and there is something after modernization. DCG Oluyomi Adewale, PS Chairperson, the Chairman, Senate Committee on Customs and Excise, with tired but not tired. Very senior customs officers here present. My job is very simple. He said, I wondered what I'm going to say after the CGC. I also asked of what we're going to have for today. So I first of all want to thank God Almighty who has made today making it possible. And secondly, I want to thank the CGC. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You're all welcome to African Bank, African Trade Center, Abuja. The safety is of top priority to us. We have a 247 CCTV footage control. We have our UVM scanners for our vehicles and bomb. Next person, do well to reach out to the security team. Here in ANCC, the security is of top priority to us, and we are sure. Please be seated. Isa, the Vice Chairman, distinguished senators here, the team of the Nigeria Customs Service, serving and retired but not tired, controllers of. I am Deputy Comptroller of Customs, A.A. Maiwada, the National Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Customs Intervention. And there is a tradition that must be upheld. And to do that, for the opening prayer. Distinguished Senator, the floor is yours, sir. Who is the #1 custom officer in Nigeria, as well as the chairperson of the CEO Council, Bashir. PSC Dada. Permit me to recognize CC Dim, Inspection and Investigation. We also have ACG, and we have ACG Strategic Research and Policy. She's also here with us. Dera Nadi, MNI, is also distinguished senator, chairman Senate Committee on Customs, for introduction of our distinguished senator. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is
other staff of Nigeria Customs Services here present. I am representing the
trying to battle superiority, but today I have surrendered today, sir. Yes. While we invite members of the management team.
Before then, let me
Resource persons, please. Members of the management team of no, okay, you can switch. Give him cover, sir.
First, I want to appreciate my distinguished colleagues for taking out time to attend this retreat. We are on recess, but you've been able to make this sacrifice to attend this retreat today and tomorrow. Distinguished colleagues, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for the sacrifice. This retreat is supposed to endear us, distinguished senators, to the operations of the Nigeria Customs Service. The Nigeria Customs Service, under the able leadership of Bashir Adeniyi, has embarked on so many milestone reforms. The results today have manifested themselves in improved, what I will call quantum leap in revenue generation, improved trade facilitation, and a very robust anti-smuggling activities. I want to commend Nigeria Customs Services for all these feats. Talking about your performance, arising from all these reforms, in 2025, the approved budget was about 6.5 trillion naira, but the actual received was about 7.3 trillion. On behalf of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I want to appreciate the CG, members of the management staff, members of the management and staff of Nigerian Customs Services for this impressive performance. I commend you all. Going forward in 2026, we believe that you can do a lot better. What you need to do is to identify your challenges, try to address them as much as possible so that you can have a much more robust performance in 2026 and beyond. Where you require legislative backings, please do not hesitate to call on us. I implore my colleagues here present today to participate actively in the interactive sessions, so that at the end of the day, you will be able to seek clarifications on issues that you may not understand, and possibly come up with suggestions on how to improve on the services of Nigeria Customs Services. I believe that at the end of this retreat, my colleagues here present today and those who will be coming to join us later will be able to appreciate Nigeria Customs Services the more, and will now be good ambassadors of Nigeria Customs Services out there. I want to specifically congratulate the Comptroller-General of Nigerian Customs Services on his re-election as the chairperson of the World Customs Organization Council. It's a major feat for Nigeria. And the implication of this is that Nigeria is increasingly being recognized as a force to reckon with in global customs administration. Congratulations to you, the CG. Congratulations to the management staff. Congratulations to the staff of Nigerian Customs Services. On this note, I want to thank you very much, and I wish all of us very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
To welcome us to this important event. BCG, sir.
It is with profound pleasure and a deep sense of honor that I warmly welcome you all to this retreat organized for the distinguished members of the Senate Committee on Customs and Excise. This gathering represents another important milestone in the enduring partnership between the National Assembly and the Nigeria Customs Service, providing a valuable platform for dialogue, knowledge sharing, and constructive engagement on issues that are central to the continued transformation of our service. Permit me at the outset to convey our profound appreciation to the Comptroller-General of Customs, whose visionary leadership has continued to redefine the operational landscape of the Nigeria Customs Service. Through his unwavering commitment to institutional reforms, human capital development, technological innovation, and stakeholder collaboration, the service has continued to evolve into a modern, transparent, intelligence-driven, and globally competitive customs administration. His approval of this retreat once again reflects his strong conviction that sustainable reforms are best achieved through continuous engagement with critical stakeholders, particularly the legislature. I also wish to extend our heartfelt appreciation to the chairman and distinguished members of the Senate Committee on Customs and Excise for their unwavering legislative support and strategic guidance towards the advancement of the Nigeria Customs Service. The enactment of the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023 stands as a landmark achievement which has provided the legal foundation for the comprehensive reforms and modernization initiatives currently being implemented by the service. We remain grateful for your commitment to strengthening customs administration in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this retreat, legislative oversight in the context of Nigeria Customs Service modernization and reforms, is both timely and highly significant. Effective legislative oversight remains indispensable to promoting transparency, accountability, and institutional effectiveness. It equally provides the necessary support for ensuring that reforms are implemented in accordance with national laws, international best practices, and the expectations of the Nigerian people. The Nigeria Customs Service is presently undertaking one of the most comprehensive modernization programs in its history, from the deployment of the indigenous Bodogu trade management systems, enhanced intelligence-driven operations, post-clearance audit reforms, the authorized economic operator program, coordinated border management initiatives, and the ongoing digital transformation of customs processes. The service continues to position itself as a catalyst for trade facilitation, revenue optimization, and indeed national security. The sessions carefully designed for this retreat, including discussions on the modernization agenda of the service, stakeholder engagement, legal framework supporting reforms, deployment of indigenous Bodogu platform, and the critical role of legislative oversight in sustaining institutional transformation underscore our collective determination to build a custom administration that is both efficient, innovative, accountable, and responsive to the needs of government, the trading community, and the Nigerian public. Recognizing that no reform can succeed without a competent and motivated workforce, the Comptroller-General has continued to place human capital development at the center of his administration through expanded training opportunities, leadership development programs, specialized capacity building initiatives, and continuous professional education. Officers and men of the service are being equipped with the requisite knowledge, skills, and ethical orientation needed to thrive in an increasingly dynamic global customs environment. As we commence this retreat, I encourage all participants to actively engage in the deliberations, share experiences, offer practical insights, and contribute meaningfully to the discussions. I have no doubt that the recommendations arising from this engagement will further strengthen legislative oversight, deepen institutional collaboration, and accelerate the ongoing modernization of the Nigeria Customs Service for the benefit of our dear nation. On behalf of the Comptroller-General of Customs, the management, and the entire officers and men of the Nigeria Customs Service, I once again extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests and wish you a productive, enriching, and successful retreat. Thank you for your kind attention. God bless Nigeria Customs Service.
Thank you. Gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all to this important retreat. I thank you for accepting our invitation and for giving 2 working days of your time to an engagement that carries no statutory compulsion whatsoever. I understand the commitment that the chairman of the committee has shown to this over the last 2 months or thereabouts since we are talking about it. But we still insist that this is an engagement that carries no statutory compulsion in any way. And that point is worth pausing on. The service appears before this committee several times in the year. We come with our budgets. We come with our revenue returns. We come when there are questions to answer. Those appearances are proper, and we do not resent them. But an institution that meets its legislature only across a table of accountability will never be fully understood by it. And an oversight function built on that acquaintance alone is weaker than it needs to be. We have invited you here so that we will be able to close that gap. We are not asking you to be less exacting with us. We are asking you to be exacting from a position of complete familiarity with what we are building. Permit me to place this conversation in its proper setting. Last year, the service collected 7.27 trillion naira, exceeding our targets by 10.24%. And between January and May of this year, we've collected 3.35 trillion. These are not the figures of an administration that could be said to be in difficulty. But I want to be careful about what those numbers prove. Revenue growth in a period of currency adjustments can flatter an administration that has done very little. What matters is whether the growth rests on better systems or on favorable arithmetic. I want to let you know that our situation rests on system, and the promise of this retreat is to let you examine that claim rather than just accepting it from me. Beyond collection, The service now chairs the Council of the World Customs Organization. Nigeria holds that chair not because of our size, nor because of the size of our economy, but because of the direction of our reforms. When our peers in 186 customs administrations look at Nigeria, they see an administration that has decided to modernize and that has done so. Distinguished senators, ladies and gentlemen, modernization is a word that has been used loosely in our public life, and I will not blame you for approaching it with caution. Let me therefore say plainly what we mean by it in the Nigeria Customs Service. By modernization, we mean the replacement of discretion with rules. Every point at which an officer exercises personal judgment over a consignment is a point at which the outcome depends on that officer, on his training, on his workload, his integrity, and the mood for the day. Modernization is the systematic reduction of those points and their replacement with risk rules, automated valuation references, and data-driven targeting that produce the same answer regardless of who is working behind the desk. This is why our trade modernization project matters. And this is why the deployment of Modogu is more than a change of software. A customs administration that runs on paper is an administration in which the file can be found or lost, in which the files can be moved forward or held back. An administration that runs a single electronic record is one in which every decision leaves a trace. Every delay has an answer, and every intervention can be reconstructed after the fact. You will therefore hear the details of that from DCG Abe this morning and from Trade Modernization Project hopefully tomorrow. I will not anticipate these details. I will let you hear them. I will only say that transparency that creates cuts in every direction, including towards the service and towards me. That is the real intention. None of this would have been possible without the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023, and I want to begin this section with a word of gratitude to members of the Parliament. The Act was the work of the National Assembly, and it is easily forgotten in the daily business of oversight that the instrument which made our reform lawful was drafted, debated, and passed by the institution that you represent. For decades, this service operated under legislation written for a different century and in a different pattern of trade. The new Act gave us a modern legal basis for electronic processing, for advanced rulings, for authorized economic operator status, and for funding mechanism that makes sustained investment possible. You are not observing our reform from outside it. You offered the condition for it, and for that, would say a very big thank you to you. And that brings me to what I consider the most useful thing this retreat can offer us. The Act has now been in operation for 3 years. A statute of that age is no longer a proposition. It is a record. There is now evidence for which provisions have worked as intended, which have proved harder to apply than what the drafting anticipated, and which the pace of trade has already begun to overtake. A legislature rarely gets to see its own statute at work from inside. Over these days, you will have the opportunity to see it. I would ask you to treat this particular retreat as an occasion for consideration of the review of the Act as much as possible for the service, and to ask our resource person not only what we have built, but what the law gave us, whether it is proven adequate or not. Where it is not, we will rather that you air it than discover it in another 3 years. I also want to seek your indulgence to speak candidly about one other issue. As customs administration becomes more automated, the character of effective oversight changes. When systems were manual, the natural question to ask a Comptroller-General was about a particular consignment, a particular clearance, a particular decision, and so on and so forth. But in a modernized administration, that is no longer where the real questions lie. The consequential questions become questions about the rules themselves, how the risk engine is calibrated, what proportion of declaration it selects for examination, whether the valuation database is current, how quickly the system releases compliant cargo, and whether the exemptions written into our laws are costing more than they deliver. This, for me, in an automated environment, are the real issues. Those are the questions. They require this committee to interrogate design rather than the incident. But they are questions that move the natural needle, and a committee that asks them will exercise more influence over trade outcomes than the one that does not. It follows that the most viable thing this service can offer your oversight is not access to individual decisions, but access to the data and the design. That is what we are opening to you over the next 2 days, and what I am inviting you to hold us to afterwards. Ask us what the system did and why did the system did those things, and we will answer. As a matter of review, I know that DCG Nnadi is here. DCG Nnadi had a remarkable career in the Nigeria Customs Service, fortunate in the support of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, and in the guidance of the board of the Nigerian Customs Service under the Honorable Minister of Finance. But the protection that endures beyond any single administration is the legislative protection, where this committee makes it known that the reform has the confidence of the Senate, resistance to it becomes materially very, very difficult. That is a form of support only you can give, and it costs us nothing but clarity. Distinguished senators, permit me to be more specific about what I think will help us most. First, hold us to outcome rather than to an activity. Ask what the release time was and not how many meetings were held about it. And second, help us protect the boundary that makes modernization credible. A risk engine that can be overridden by influence is not a risk engine. It is a formality with a computer just attached to it. The service will keep that boundary, and your public support for it will strengthen every officer who has to hold the line at a port, at an airport, or at any border station. Third, engage us on the exemption regime. A substantial volume of trade enters this country under waivers and concession granted for policy reasons. Whether these concessions still serve the purposes for which they were created is a legislative question rather than a customs one, and we will welcome your attention devoted to this particular issue. And finally, keep coming, not only when there are figures to explain, but when there is nothing at all to answer for. We will always welcome you. Distinguished senators, Nigeria Customs Service, you will see over the next 2 days, is an institution in the middle of a change it chooses to make. We are not done yet with the change. There are ports where the new system is not fully bedded in. Officers are still learning it, and the traders are still adjusting to them. You will hear about those difficulties as well, because a retreat that presented only successes would waste your time and possibly insult your intelligence. What I can tell you is that the direction is settled, that the legal foundation you have given us is very sound, and that this service intends to hand over to the next generation of officers an administration that runs on rules rather than on relationships or on godfatherism. I still want to pledge our readiness to submit to legislative oversight all of the time. We will continue to be guided by your advice, by your wise counseling, by your support all of the time. I will invite our resource persons as much as possible to make their presentations.